Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Candy and Popcorn. I know that it has been a while since I last did this, but I really wanted to get back to it because I really love talking about all things movies, TVs, and books, and I really do think that you do too. So let's have a conversation and let's get started. So on today's episode, we are going to talk about one of my favorite types of TV shows, which are medical dramas, and we're only going to talk about 3. There's a lot of them on television right now, I know, but we can't incorporate the entire gambit. So today we're going to talk about Grey's Anatomy, we're going to talk about The Resident, and we're going to talk about The Good Doctor. An honorable mention to House. I know it's not on television anymore, but House is like the OG of medical dramas. So let's get started with that. And I have a glass of wine, so this is going to be a really good talk. So let's talk about what makes these dramas similar, right? So they all focus on one main character, and then you'll have the side stories of various different characters in the series. Now, I know that's every single TV show, but I really do think that Shonda Rhimes does this the best of all three. So with Grey's Anatomy, there's so many characters that you can get attached to and go down the rabbit hole of each one. I think that's the success of why Grey's Anatomy has been on air for 15 seasons. Right? Like, not only is there Meredith Grey and her parent issues and her, love issues, there's also Miranda Bailey and, her divorce issues, and then her remarriage, and then raising a son, and then you can go down with Richard Weber and his love of Meredith Grey's mom, and his addiction issues, right? Like, there's so many different things to latch onto and characters to latch onto. Jackson Avery and his issues with wealth and his issues with God and his issues with his mother, right? I think it is such a great show because it allows you to get involved with so many more characters outside of the main character, Meredith Grey. So that's interesting. Whereas you see less of that when you start looking at The Resident or The Good Doctor. Take The Good Doctor, for example. Lovely show, really mainly focuses on Sean Murphy and how he navigates life with his autism, right? But other than Dr. Glassman, who's his mentor, it doesn't really go in depth with other characters other than how they interact with Sean. Now, there are certain exclusions to that, one being Dr. Menendez and Dr. Lim and their relationships together, right? But you don't really know too much of what other characters do. You might see glimpses and threads here, but it's not a constant thing where every single episode we're delving into these other characters. So that's why it's different than Grey's Anatomy. It also doesn't have the long list of actors and characters that Grey's Anatomy has, but also Grey's Anatomy has 15 seasons of history in order to do that. The other thing with The Resident is really, it is mainly focused on Conrad, and you do see a lot of other characters as well, but I think it just lacks the length of time that Grey's Anatomy has had in order to develop so many different characters and get you invested and entertained for that long. Oh, The Resident. So I recently started watching The Resident. I'm only on season 2, but here is what I love about The Resident. From all of the other medical dramas, it is from the standpoint of doctors that are trying to do good for their patients, right? Whether you're an asshole, whether you are trying your darndest to be the best person you are, whether you're just trying to navigate life or you have a neurodiversity, all of the shows, when we talk about House, when we talk about the Resident and The Good Doctor, and when we talk about Grey's Anatomy, all of these doctors are trying to do very well for their patients and make the best decisions for their patients, navigating their own messy lives. But when it comes to The Resident, these are bad doctors who are out for themselves. And if the patient has to suffer in order to benefit that doctor in some way, then the patient will suffer in order to benefit that doctor in some way. And so that's a really interesting take that we see from The Resident, where you have the head of surgery, who is literally has a tremor, a physical tremor. He should not be able to practice. He should not be, doing any surgeries because his hands are not stable. But here he is keeping it a secret. Here he is, taking various different types of medication without getting a consultation of a doctor, by the way, another doctor, in order to cover that up. And then there are other doctors who know about it who refuse to do anything because we look out for our own as doctors, not necessarily looking out for patients. So that's a really cool take that they do with the resident. We had another doctor in season 1 who was literally killing patients and prescribing them, overdosing them on chemo, and misdiagnosing them purposefully with cancer for the money, right? Like, there was no love of practice, no love of patient care. It was mainly love of self and love of career and ambition. So that's a really cool take, I think, with the resident that we don't see with other medical dramas. And yes, you can say House was an asshole and he did things for himself, but I think House came from a place, he had a personality deficiency for sure, but House also cared about providing the best diagnosis, because it was all about the diagnosis. He just didn't care about the people, right? Like, he loved being a doctor to solve those problems, but he did not care at all about, he didn't want to hear about your problems. Like, he's going to treat you like crap because he is House, and he's going to get away with it because he's brilliant. All right, so that's really, really cool. Ooh, so let's talk about some of the actors on The Resident, right? So Matt Czuchry, Matt CZ. I knew him from the days of The Good Wife, and love that show, by the way. Maybe I'll do an episode on The Good Wife. But he plays this character so well. He plays a very confident, self-assured, but caring doctor who also, again, they have like really shitty personal lives. So he also was very distant and can't commit, blah, blah, blah. But Matt Czuchry has a subtlety that he brings to the camera where it's all in his facial features. He is so subtle, and it's all very small reactions to the other actors and the other characters, but it's so loud, right? I can watch him for days as you just look at his face and how he processes different emotions that the characters bring to the table. And it was very similar. It was a very similar character that he played on The Good Wife, right? Like, just this very calculating personality that he pauses, he's slow, he is not quick to anger, but at the same time, there's so much passion in his visage. And I just want to commend him. I'm a huge fan of Matt Czuchry, and I thought that he brought that character from The Good Wife, and a lot of those elements are again here in the Resident, and bravo. I think it's a really good show, and I want to say Matt Czuchry is fine. He is definitely a looker. They make a joke on the show that he does not eat simple carbs, and to look like those abs, you definitely can't eat, carbs, because I go to the gym all the time, but I like bread and wine. So, Matt Czuchry, I guess he doesn't eat carbs, and continue, because we are. Another one of my favorite characters, actually my favorite character on The Resident, is Dr. Mina Okafor, who's played by Shawnette Renee Wilson. I just love seeing dark-skinned women on camera because, but I think she does this character such justice. Mina Okafor is blunt, she's rude, she is very talented, and she knows it, right? And she approaches life in such a no-nonsense way, and it doesn't matter who the hell you are. You know, you could be the CEO of the hospital, you could be the chief of surgery, you could be a donor of the hospital worth millions or billions. She treats you the same way, and she hones in on her craft, and she loves it, and she's another one that really brings such passion to the character and everything that she does, right? Like, not only does she love being a surgeon, right? But even the things she does outside of that, you see that she is a seamstress, and she makes these beautiful pieces of art that is such detailed and tailored, and that is a similarity, it's a mirror to exactly what she does in the OR. But it's interesting, she also still has this love of people, and our love of doing good for people. So she talks about the people who influenced her. You know, there was an episode where she meets her idol, which is a world-renowned female professor who is also a surgeon, and you know, her eyes just light up from seeing this person that allowed her or inspired her to become a surgeon. And then you see her literally stealing, she is stealing medication from the hospital, which is illegal, but she's stealing medication from the hospital in order to help people within her community who don't have the means to actually go to the hospital or go to another clinic to get that medical help. So I really love her. There was a really cool scene that I found really funny, that she was at this very expensive donor dinner. She was the only resident, no one else was invited. And here's another, you know, wealthy donor who says, hey, oh, are you here to sell me on, you know, giving you more money? And she's like, I'm here because I'm black, because apparently diversity matters. Oh, how do you not love that? Like, it's just such, like, you know, it hit on, and it was very awkward but funny, and just spot on for who the character is. So, you know, Shawnette Renee Wilson, I am looking out for you, girl, because that is some great acting that you bring to that character. So with The Good Doctor, I really want to talk about why the show is really cool. Like, we've never seen something like this before, where the show follows someone with a neurodiversity. So Dr. Sean Murphy has autism, and the show really, not only is a brilliant doctor, but a lot of the drama surrounds how he interacts and moves through everyday society with his disability, with his autism. And I do apologize, I don't want to offend anyone. If I'm using the wrong terminology here, I'm always open to being educated, so just tell me in the comments, and you know, I will definitely acknowledge that. So with Dr. Sean Murphy, it's really cool because he's going through everyday things. He's going through adult life, right? How do you navigate your career? How do you navigate love? How do you navigate money? How do you navigate your relationships and your friendships, right? And it's really cool to see it from this different perspective where, yes, he has this disability, but he also brings to the table so much more. And we've never seen it where there is literally a neurodiversity there, you know, other than like the doctor being an ass, which is not a neurodiversity. That's just a personality defect. So it's really cool to see it from that take, to see that he's still very capable of doing all of those things, right? Navigating his career in his own way, because he's brilliant in that way, and he just needs to approach things a little different than everyone else. So that's a really interesting take that I think The Good Doctor has really honed in on. I want to give so much kudos to Freddie Highmore, who plays Dr. Sean Murphy. He plays this autistic character with such ease and such accuracy and such beauty, in the sense that he is completely believable as a character with autism. He is awkward in his interactions with other human beings. He is awkward in his interactions with himself. He is awkward with just how he looks at things is just so much different. And he pointed out that although he has this neurodiverse condition and he has this disability, it still doesn't stop him from solving problems. He just does them in a different way. And Freddie Highmore's mannerisms, it just brings such beauty to the character that you can you almost think that Freddie Highmore himself is an autistic character, is an autistic person. I think that's how authentic and realistic he is. So I want to give him kudos, but he seems like a person without a disability when I watch him on screen, when he was on various different talk shows, and it's really cool to see that juxtaposed to him as Sean Murphy. I mean, that is the brilliance of acting. So kudos to Freddie Highmore. All right, so if I had to rate these three, I would say number one is Grey's Anatomy, because like Shonda Rhimes is just amazing, and like she has the credentials to prove it. 15 seasons, come on, like that's number one. I would say The Resident, because it is much more dramatic, I think, than The Good Doctor, when you're going from the place of like malicious intent versus overcoming a disability. I think the malicious intent wins out, right? Because you see people who are actively looking to bring harm to others versus someone else who, while is great and makes you feel good, it's less of a, oh my gosh, I can't believe he did that type of moment. So I would say number one, Grey's Anatomy, number two, The Resident, and number three, The Good Doctor. So guys, if you watch these shows, please let me know what you think. I really like them all, but I would love to see what your thoughts are. And then also, like, again, I'm not ranking this with House, because House is an OG. Like, you know, House is the reason why there are so many successful medical dramas, you know, so I can't throw it in the mix because I think it'll be a little unfair. But let me know what you think. I would love to hear your comments. So like, subscribe, and I will hope to see you guys again for another episode of Candy and Popcorn. So until then, stay blessed. Love you. Bye.